guys, this is the first of 3 things that we're going to cook today. We're going to make butter first, then we're going to make 2 different loaves of bread. So for the butter, this is what you need. Whipping cream and some salt at the end, just a little bit of salt at the end. Okay, and you can do this one of 2 ways. You can either do the shake method, where you can use a mason jar is the easiest with a lid. When you put the cream in, you want to make sure it's about 3/4 to halfway full is all, so that you have room to shake, and you're going to shake it for a really long time. Shaking a long, long time. I don't do this, it takes too long. So, then the other method is a mixer. You can either use a stand mixer or a hand mixer, it doesn't matter. I have a stand mixer, so I'm using the stand mixer. If you have a hand mixer, you gotta stand here and hold it the whole time. Stand mixer, I can put it in, and then we're good. Okay? So, about 2 cups of heavy cream. And you're just gonna pour it in. The salt is at the end, so we don't need the salt now. If you have some kind of bowl guard, you need to put that on because it will splash out. And it splashes more towards the end when it's starting to turn into butter. So we're going to put the bowl guard on, and you are going to, just like anything else, we're going to start it at a lower speed. Otherwise it will really splash out. Alright, so we're going to put it at a lower speed until it starts to thicken up a little bit. Yeah, it's really low. And then once it starts to thicken up a little bit, you can increase the speed. You're going to have to stop periodically and scrape the sides to get all that down in there. Now it's going to look like whipped cream for a really, really long time, and then like all of a sudden it's going to turn into butter. And you can tell it's turning into butter when you start seeing splashes of like a milky water coming up. And once you start seeing those splashes, then you know you're almost having butter, and it'll go really quick. You'll see it turn like a really pale yellow, and you'll have water in the bottom, and you're going to mix it for a little bit longer, and I'll show you that just to get all the buttermilk out. Okay, so we'll just let this go and mix, and I'll show you how it's going as we go along. Okay, almost there. Look at this. You see this? That's the buttermilk starting to come out. It's starting to splash. Here. Got it splashing, and it's almost butter. Okay, now I want you to see this. We are almost at butter. Okay? Can you see how it's starting to come off the sides on its own and start to really thicken up? So it will probably be butter in about another minute or so. There we go, we've got butter. So I told you it's kind of messy. Here, we'll look inside. So look. Look at that. See? So we've got our butter. See, it turned yellow. See, like it's nice and thick. And then this is all the buttermilk at the bottom. Okay? So we are going to go ahead and drain out that buttermilk. Now that, you can drink it. You can save it, and you can use it for cooking. It's good in muffins and cakes, or you can just throw it away if you don't want it. I think I'm probably going to save it. I'm probably going to make a cake. So this took us about 7 or 8 minutes from start to finish with this. Okay, so I'm going to drain out that liquid. I'm going to save the butter, and I'm going to put about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there and let it mix up real quick in the mixer, and then it's done. Alright, there we go. We got our butter and my buttermilk. I think I might save that buttermilk. I don't know if it's enough to use it in the cinnamon raisin bread we're going to make here in a minute. butter, buttermilk, butter, buttermilk. Hey, cooking again. We've already made the butter. Jason showed up for some bread. All right, so first we're gonna do white bread. If you don't want to do the white bread, forward through to the cinnamon raisin bread, whatever you want. Okay, so we are gonna start preheating our oven to 350 degrees. Ooh, hey, look, while you're over there, go back, go back, go back. Look in here. I'm making cream cheese. Okay, I hope it turns out. Well, I'll let you know how it goes. Okay, so preheated my oven to 350. It's going. It should be up there by the time we get there. So we're gonna need flour, sugar, baking soda, milk, butter, and an egg. Real easy. Okay, so first we're gonna mix the wet and the dry separately, and then we're gonna mix them together. So first we're gonna go ahead and do the wet in the mixing, and that way we're not dirtying like 3 bowls. So we'll put the wet in the mixing bowl. One-handed, just like Damien. All right, so we've got our egg in there. 1 egg, 1 cup of milk, and 3 tablespoons of melted butter. When you melt the butter, let it cool just a little bit before you put it in there so you don't cook the egg with the butter there. Otherwise the egg will kind of, the hot butter will cook that egg up a little bit. So we're just gonna get that mixed up a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. So it's mixed. That's good. All right, and then in a separate bowl, we're gonna mix our flour, our sugar, and our baking powder. So we need 1/3 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour, 1, 2. If you can't shake it off level, you can use the back of a knife and scrape it off, and that'll get it nice and level for you. 2, and then 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Not soda, baking powder. I got out the wrong thing. Good thing I looked at that. I would have had flat bread probably. All right, so 3 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3. All right, whisk please. Thank you, sir. You can just use a whisk or even just a fork. It doesn't matter. You're just gonna get those mixed up. It doesn't have to be super great, just enough to get them all mixed together. Oh, excuse me. It's okay, you're good. All right, then we're gonna mix our dry into our wet. Just a little bit at a time. Don't dump it all in at once. Just get a little bit up in there. Mix it. And then a little bit more. All right, there you go. You just want it mixed through. You don't want to over mix it. Okay? Then we're going to use a nonstick spray. Spray your loaf pan. Get your stuff out of the way. And then after you've sprayed your pan, you're just going to put your batter, your dough, into your loaf pan. It's easy. I hope it turns out. I haven't made this one before. We'll see, won't we? Then we'll know if we can scrap that recipe or not. All right. All right, you're gonna put it in there and you're just gonna spread it out in the pan so it's kind of even in there. After you've got it all in. Did y'all wash your hands before you did this? I forgot to ask. I shouldn't have to keep reminding you. By now, y'all should know to wash your hands before you start cooking, because you're gonna do this. Scrape that off there. Do not lick your fingers, please. Alright, then we're just going to let it spread out there in your pan. There we go. How easy is that? Alright, then we're going to pop it in the oven and bake it for 35 minutes. So, Jason, baby, you are in the way. So, in the oven it goes. Timer for 35 minutes. And then we will come back and we'll see how it turns out. Alright, let's take a peek. Look at that. It's looking good. Alright. Let's see. 12 more minutes. Okay, so here's our white bread that we did out of the oven. And it's not a real tall because we didn't use yeast in it. The yeast makes it rise a little bit more. So, let's see. That looks delicious. I'm gonna taste it. See if it really is. That's good. It's a little sweet bread, but it's delicious. Be really good with that homemade butter we just put on there. Okay, we're back again. All right, so this is recipe number 3 for this week. We are going to do a cinnamon and raisin bread. Okay. Just be there. Okay. So, for this, you're going to need 4 cups of flour. Now this makes 2 loaves. If you don't want 2 loaves, then cut it in half. Pretty easy. All right, go back. 4 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda. There it is. A teaspoon of salt, 2 eggs, 2 cups of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, what you can do is you can use regular milk, and you use 2 cups of regular milk and 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, and you mix that in there and it turns it to buttermilk. Okay? And then you also need a half a cup of vegetable oil, half a cup of raisins that we soaked in water about a half an hour ago, and then they're a little plumper, not quite so dry. And then 2 eggs.
You already said that.
Oh, I did? All right. Well, we already said. Well, we still just need 2 eggs. And then 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. Okay? So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a half... Okay, so since it makes 2 loaves, you take a half a cup of sugar and 3 teaspoons of cinnamon and mix them together. And we're going to... I'll show you how to do that later, but that's going to be set aside because we're going to layer the bread and put that in between. So, but since we're doing 2 loaves, I'm going to cut that in half so that I don't have to kind of guess when I'm pouring it in. So, I just have 2 small containers. I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of sugar in each of them, 1 for each loaf. Okay? And then a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon in each of those. Oh. Can't get it open. All in a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon in each of those. There's one, and one for that, and half in there, and a half in there. And we're just going to mix those together. And like I said, when we have it all the bread all mixed up, we're going to layer the loaves. And we're going to do the bread loaf in half the pan, and then we're going to put half of each of these on it, and then another layer of the dough, and then some more cinnamon and sugar. And we're going to stick a knife in and swirl it around. All right, so that's at the end. We're going to use that. All right, so, and then like that other bread that we made, we're going to mix the wet and the dry separately, and then mix them together. So I'm going to put the wet in my mixing bowl. So that is 2 eggs, 1 egg, 2 eggs, 2 cups of buttermilk. And you can use that buttermilk that we used from the butter. And a half a cup of vegetable oil. All right, we're gonna get that all mixed up. Mix. All right. There we go. So we've got everything all mixed up together there. Perfect. All right. Now we're going to do our dry ingredients. So our dry ingredients were 4 cups of flour. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2 cups of sugar. 1, 2. Then we've got our baking soda, 2 teaspoons of that. One, 2. And 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, and we're going to just get that mixed up a bit. And then we're just like the other bread, we're just going to add it slowly to the wet. And once that gets mixed up, then we're going to stir the raisins in. So let's put a little bit of that in there. that's good. Dump the rest in. Get it all nice and smooth, no lumps. Alright, now we're going to add the raisins. The reason we don't put the raisins in like this is because they'll get all broken up and smushed and stuff with the beater. We want them to stay whole in there. So we just dump our raisins in. You washed your hands, right? We just mix those in by hand. Get them all mixed through. If you like more raisins, put more raisins in. If you don't like a lot of raisins, don't put a lot of raisins in. Okay. Okay, now we are ready to put it in the pans. I already sprayed my pans with my non-stick spray. Okay. We are going to not use a spatula. You're just going to have to kind of eyeball this with how much you put in, because we're going to do 2 layers. We want to use half the first time and then half the second time for 2 layers. That's about half our dough, I guess, half our mix. So I'm going to put that in there. And we're going to take half of this cinnamon and sugar that we mixed up. We'll sprinkle it on there. Okay. Now we're going to put some more on. It's not exactly half, that doesn't really matter. It's all good. Alright. You do want to kind of like even it out here in the pan, I guess. It's another one I haven't made before. First time with you guys. All right, some more cinnamon and sugar. All right, and then we're going to take a knife. We're going to stick it in. We're just going to kind of swirl this through the dough, like that. So we got a nice swirly cinnamon and sugar going all through this. You don't want to mix it. You just want to kind of swirl the knife through it. All right. bake it for 55 to 60 minutes. So, look at that. Alright, I'm going to put that on for 55 minutes. And we'll check it in an hour. Let's take a peek at our cinnamon raisin bread. Ooh, it's looking good. It's almost done. Okay, there it is. All done. Got our cinnamon raisin bread. Ooh, it smells delicious. And then our sweet ripe bread. And our butter. Yum. I hope you guys have fun making this. I did.